You're thinking of studying abroad in high school or for a gap year and are interested to know what options are out there. Here's your chance to do it on a full scholarship. In this video, we're going to tell you a little bit about 3 scholarship programs in particular: NSLI-Y, Flex Abroad, and Yes Abroad, and how to apply for them.
Have you ever heard of citizen diplomacy? It's the idea that average citizens can represent their country overseas in order to build relationships with citizens of other countries, to break down stereotypes and create peace. And our government, through the U.S. Department of State, promotes citizen diplomacy with exchange programs, just like NSLI-Y, Flex Abroad, and Yes Abroad. All 3 are merit-based scholarship programs of the U.S. Department of State that include airfare, room and board with a host family component, attendance in a language program and or a local high school, orientations, visa, and a stipend for basic needs. The scholarship does not cover passport costs, extra pocket money, medical examinations, and immunizations.
All of these programs have the same basic eligibility requirements. You must be a U.S. citizen, between 15 to 18 years old at the start of the program, and 18 and a half for Flex and Yes Abroad, and you must be enrolled in high school at the time of the application. NSLI-Y also has a minimum GPA requirement of 2.5 or higher on a 4.0 scale. In addition, you cannot be a direct family member of a State Department or USAID employee or an employee of an agency that contracts with them. There's a more detailed list of eligibility requirements available on the program's websites. You are eligible for these programs if you participated in a previous program, as long as it was virtual. You are also still eligible for academic year programs if you have participated only on a short-term program like NSLI-Y Summer or Youth Ambassadors in a different calendar year.
One new aspect of the programs this year is that you can apply for all 3 programs through the same application. The application is very similar to previous years. However, now you only need to enter your contact and biographical information, activities, school transcript, host family letter, parent statement, and recommendation one time. Additionally, the first essay is the same across all programs. The remaining essays vary by program. You can watch a separate step-by-step video guide, which you can find linked in the YouTube description below and on the program's websites and YouTube pages. When you apply, you can select one program or multiple. While you can apply for and be considered for multiple programs, you would only be able to accept one scholarship offer.
Even though there's only one application now, different programs still have different deadlines, which are listed on this chart. What deadline you need to submit your application by depends on which programs you're applying to. If your application includes NSLI-Y, the application deadline is in November, with the parent statement and recommendation due 1 week after that deadline. The Flex Abroad and Yes Abroad program applications have a later deadline in December, with supporting materials due 1 week after that. However, one important thing to note is that if you're applying to NSLI-Y and one or both of the other programs, all supporting materials are due at the supporting materials deadline for NSLI-Y in November. For example, if you are applying to NSLI-Y and Yes Abroad, everything outside of the Yes Abroad essays are due at the earlier deadlines in November, while the Yes Abroad specific essay is due by the Yes Abroad application deadline in December. If you are applying just to Flex Abroad and Yes Abroad, everything is due by the later deadlines in December. After the applications are submitted, all applications will go through a preliminary screening, and those selected as semifinalists will be contacted for an interview and asked to complete additional documentation, such as a medical form. Semifinalists will be notified of their status as a finalist, alternate, or non-select starting in March.
Now we are going to talk about the programs themselves, starting with NSLI-Y. NSLI-Y is part of the U.S. government's National Security Language Initiative and has provided intensive overseas language immersion programs since 2006. The goals of NSLI-Y are to develop critical language skills in young Americans, to help them compete effectively in a global economy, to spark a lifetime of interest in language and culture, and to build mutual understanding globally through international dialogue.
NSLI-Y currently offers summer and academic year programs. Summer programs are 6 to 7 weeks and take place generally between mid to late June and early to mid-August. Academic year programs are 8 to 10 months long. They generally begin in August or September and end in May or June. The 7 languages offered for summer programs are Arabic, Mandarin Chinese, Indonesian, Korean, Persian with a focus on Tajiki, Russian, and Turkish. Academic year programs are offered in all of these languages except for Indonesian, Persian, and Turkish. In the application, you can select up to 2 language and program duration preferences, but note that you cannot specifically request a host country. For example, applicants for a Russian summer program may be placed in any of the NSLI-Y host locations for Russian. Countries include Latvia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. Approximately 500 scholarships are awarded each year.
NSLI-Y achieves its program goals through several approaches. Participants complete intensive formal language instruction 5 days a week in a specifically designed classroom setting, usually with other NSLI-Y participants. Participants can expect to attend 3 to 4 hours of language classes each weekday. They take part in diverse cultural activities and excursions with one another and local peers, and they experience cultural immersion through a host family component, which can include living with a host family for the duration of the program or a combination of a host family stay in addition to time in a supervised dormitory.
Now, on to the other 2 programs, Flex Abroad and Yes Abroad. Both programs are reciprocal exchanges of the long-standing Flex and Yes programs that bring exchange students from other countries to the United States. Flex was started in 1992 at the end of the Cold War to introduce youth from the former Soviet Union to the US and to Americans firsthand, and to introduce Americans to the countries and cultures of Flex participants. It has since grown to include almost 24 countries across Europe and Eurasia. The Yes program, modeled after Flex, was established following the events of September 11, 2001, in order to build relationships and break down stereotypes between Americans and countries with significant Muslim populations. In 2009, the U.S. Department of State started sending young Americans back to select Yes countries on Yes Abroad, and did the same with Flex Abroad, beginning in 2022. You can see the current numbers of participants and countries in the chart on this slide. Through cultural immersion, participants on Flex and Yes break down stereotypes, form lasting relationships across cultures, and develop into young leaders with skills to succeed in a globally interconnected world. When applying, you will have the opportunity to rank the countries that you're interested in. Your country preferences are not evaluated, but they are taken into consideration during the placement process. Each host country has its own age and grade requirements, so applicants should be prepared to be hosted in any of these amazing countries. Flex Abroad and Yes Abroad are academic year programs, running approximately 10 months in length. All participants experience daily life in the host country by living with a host family and attending a host high school. Participants will be enrolled in a local school alongside host country peers. Schools may be in English or a local language. While you're on program, you will have the opportunity to take part in various cultural activities. These can include exploring the country with your cohort on short cultural and language excursions, or cultural extracurricular activities or volunteer activities within your host community. Participants will also have the opportunity to learn a new language through immersion. While Flex Abroad and Yes Abroad are not designed for academic language study, the ability to communicate with locals is obviously incredibly important. Participants will have access to both introductory and ongoing language lessons and are encouraged to develop their abilities through engaging with their host family, friends, and peers. Language is a crucial component of cultural exchange. Participants who take advantage of opportunities to further their knowledge and abilities will gain a deeper understanding of the host culture and its values.
Not sure about studying abroad quite yet, or looking to prepare for exchange? Host an international exchange student. You can find out more about hosting on the Flex and Yes program websites linked here and in the YouTube program description below.
Now that you've heard a little bit about these programs, do you have more questions? If so, don't worry, we have the answers. For more information about NSLI-Y, Flex Abroad, and Yes Abroad, check out our other videos that go into each program in depth. Do you have questions about safety on program? Learn more about how the host communities are selected and participants are supported in-country by the programs by watching the Safety and Security Abroad video. There's also a step-by-step guide for filling out the application. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to program staff. You can contact us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at highschoolstudyabroad@americancouncils.org and at 1-800-380-6552. And don't forget to follow the programs on social media to get a sense of what life on program is like and hear from our alumni about how these programs changed their lives and allowed them to develop lifelong skills.